He kept cars quiet.
We fix your muffler expertly.
He got saucy about chicken.
There's always value in a visit.
And he was concerned about curves.
You wanna be sure about the way you look and the way that people look at you.
How Jerry Goodis made an advertisement a beautiful thing on Under the Influence with Terry O'Reilly, Thursday morning at 11:30, 3:30 p.m. in Newfoundland, and on the CBC Listen app.
You know the feeling of finding a really good podcast? Or the feeling of someone always being there, like your favorite radio show. Stream CBC Podcasts, CBC Music, and CBC Radio anytime, anywhere. Download the CBC.
This is CBC News. Good afternoon. I'm Rosanna Hempel. At 12 o'clock, it's 12 in Winnipeg. Getting cloudier this afternoon, southwest wind gusting to 50 kilometers an hour, a high of 17 today. Israel's military says Iran has launched a missile attack. It says more than 100 missiles were fired into Israel. Sirens are sounding across the country, including Tel Aviv and Jerusalem. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu is asking residents to strictly obey instructions from the nation's Civilian Protection Agency. For the past 2 weeks, Israel has targeted Hezbollah targets inside Lebanon, killing more than 1,000 people. The Iranian attack comes shortly after Israel stepped up cross-border raids into Lebanon, targeting Hezbollah infrastructure. The U.S. has vowed Iran would face serious consequences in the event of a ballistic missile attack. In this country, Defense Minister Bill Blair says Canada has a number of resources in the area to assist Israel if necessary.
We have about 200 people in the area right now, but we're increasing that number as may be required. We are also looking at air assets and potential use of helicopter assets. Those things are being determined now. It's part of the pre-planning that we've already invested in the area. We have facilities and plans set up in place in both Cyprus and in Turkey.
That was the Defense Minister in Ottawa moments ago. Now to Saskatchewan.
Let's hit the campaign trail.
Scott Moe telling Saskatchewan voters they are going to the polls. His Saskatchewan party is looking for a fifth straight majority victory. The 4-week campaign is expected to focus on the cost of living, the economy, healthcare, and education. At her first campaign event, the leader of the NDP, Carla Beck, took a shot at Moe's leadership.
Saskatchewan does not have a revenue problem. Saskatchewan has a management problem, a mismanagement problem. After 17 years, these guys are content to let Saskatchewan fall further and further behind.
Voting day in Saskatchewan is October 28th. Now to Ottawa, where the Bloc Québécois is turning up the heat on the minority Liberal government today. It's calling for a parliamentary debate on increasing old age pension payments for seniors. Janice McGregor has more.
We're leaning in here on Bill C-319. This is one of two private members' bills initiated by the Bloc Québécois that it now wants passed without further delay. It would top up the pensions of seniors over 65, the same way seniors over 75 got a 10% pension top-up 2 years ago. But the price tag to do that? Huge, over $3 billion a year. Even though all of the opposition parties support this bill and it's got the votes numerically to pass, it will not take effect unless it has something called royal recommendation, effectively the blessing to spend that much money on an annual basis. And it's this call for a royal recommendation to be granted as soon as possible that's up for debate in the House today. Liberal cabinet ministers have said they already believe their government has done a lot for seniors. So we'll watch what they say today to see if there's any hint that with the future of their government on the line, the political calculation might be changing, if not the fiscal one. Janice McGregor, CBC News, Ottawa.
Some of the biggest ports in the United States are closed down today. Dock workers in much of the country went on strike last night. Economists say the work stoppage could eventually cost the U.S. economy billions of dollars a day. Canada as well will feel the effects. Peter Armstrong reports.
Striking dock workers have forced shipping at ports from Maine to Texas to grind to a halt. Union leaders say they'll stay off the job until their demands are met.
You have to be out here a month or 2 months, this world will collapse.
That may sound like a rhetorical flourish, but shipping containers carry crucial goods to and around North America. Pascal Chen from the Canadian Chamber of Commerce says everything from fresh produce to alcohol, car parts, furniture, cotton and wood will be held up.
That daily trade value is estimated in excess of $2.1 billion US dollars. And then given the amount of trade goods and services that flow across the countries, it's $3.6 billion across the border every day.
The Biden administration has been under pressure to intervene, but for now will only say, quote, collective bargaining is the best way for workers to get the pay and benefits they deserve. Peter Armstrong, CBC News, Toronto.
Last month was officially the hottest September on record in Winnipeg. Despite yesterday's cooler weather, the average temperature for the month was 17.8 degrees. That's 0.2 of a degree warmer than the previous record set in 2009. The city had 2 days above 30. The next week brings much cooler and more seasonal temperatures. The normal high for the first week of October is 14. And that is the CBC News from Winnipeg. Your next local CBC News is at 12:30.
Good afternoon, Manitoba. You're listening to Radio Noon on CBC Radio 1. It's Tuesday, October 1st. My name is Chloe Friesen. I'm filling in for Janet Stewart. Thank you for spending your afternoon with us. Well, today is the start of a brand new month, but did you know that October 1st is also National Seniors Day? Today to pay tribute to the seniors who have helped shape our country, province, and communities, and who enrich our lives each and every day. That is the topic of our call-in conversation today, just after the 12:30 news. More information on that coming up, but first, if you're already considering your next vacation, you might be imagining tropical beaches, grand mountains, maybe bustling cities. But Travel Manitoba hopes folks add farms to that list. Coming up, we'll hear about plans for an agritourism corridor through Saskatchewan and Manitoba. Now, as I just mentioned, when you're thinking of your next vacation, heading out to a farm might not be the first on your list, but Travel Manitoba hopes to change that. The federal government is putting $250,000 toward creating a new agritourism corridor between Manitoba and Saskatchewan. Jackie Tenuta is Travel Manitoba's Vice President of Destination Management, and she joins us live in studio. Hi, Jackie.
Hi, how are you doing?
I'm doing well. How are you with this announcement?
Oh, we're very excited about this announcement. It's something that we have behind the scenes been really interested in, have identified as a priority, and really see it as such a great opportunity.
So in broad strokes, what's the vision for an agritourism corridor? What does that look like?
Well, there's definitely a lot of work to do, and part of what this involves is the development of a strategy, which will include defining that vision, as well as development of an implementation plan, and an investment plan will also be part of that as well.
And we know Manitoba has lots of agriculture.
You bet.
So why is Manitoba a good place to offer agritourism? How do those work together?
Well, we have such a strong agriculture base, as you're saying. We have a lot of expertise here. We have a very strong, robust industry, and it just makes a lot of sense for us to capitalize on those assets and build upon them. We also have great tourism assets here. There's already some existing agritourism operators in the area. We want to build them up. We want to identify new opportunities for them. And so there's definitely a lot of room to grow.
What does that look like in terms of maybe what exists now in Manitoba, as you're mentioning, or in other countries that do agritourism? What are some examples if folks are having a hard time kind of picturing what agritourism is?
Well, I think we have some work to do on like how broad of a scope this is. So certainly there's kind of the leisure travel component, which is what you described, visiting a farm could also be a culinary experience where, where a restaurant is sourcing a lot of their ingredients locally or growing a lot of their ingredients. It could be something like that. It could be a festival where you're getting to sample and reflect upon the harvest of that area. It could be a farmer's market. Could be something like that. The other piece of it is more the technical side of it. And so, as you may be aware, there's already lots of people that come to our province to go to various ag events that are part of the industry or have an interest in the industry. And so there's that component to it as well. How can we kind of enhance those visits that are already taking place from that technical side?
Do you see this as an opportunity to maybe open up Manitoba and certain areas that are very agricultural based to tourism that haven't really been looked at as tourist destinations before?
Absolutely. So we certainly see this as a really big opportunity for some rural areas, for them to see increased visitation, for them to expand on, some of those, existing economic drivers that are already there, but really expand on that and give them other opportunities. So absolutely, that's part of it.
So what kind of tourists do you hope to attract with this program? Are you thinking staycationers or bringing people from outside of Manitoba?
I think there's opportunities for both. I think certainly getting people to travel more around the region is going to be a big part of this, getting Winnipeggers to look outside of the city to see what there is to offer, get them to travel a little further, get them to spend the night somewhere. But I also think there's an opportunity for what we call the fly drive market. So people flying in, spending a few days and traveling around or, moving on through the corridor to another destination. So moving on into Saskatchewan to, experience what that province also has to offer for agritourism.
You talked about the culinary side of things just a little bit. What sort of opportunities would be there for restaurant owners and even producers?
Well, I think there's kind of, we're not going to know until we kind of go through this whole process, but there's a few different sides to this that we see. One is like really expanding on the development of the industry, but then there's going to be a marketing component to this as well. So drawing more attention to those culinary operators that already exist out there. So there's going to be that piece of it as well, just a heightened awareness. There may be supports that come to light to help some of these businesses grow and develop. We also see potentially, and we haven't done any of the consultations on this yet, but we do actually potentially see some opportunities for Indigenous tourism. There are already, as you may be aware, a number of restaurants in the city and in other parts of the province that are Indigenous owned and are focused on, ingredients that come, from the land. And so I think there's a great opportunity there as well, not just for culinary, but for other things also.
And I can't imagine that this conversation is happening without talking about the economic benefit this brings to Manitoba for agricultural tourism. What do you think this could offer smaller communities in our province?
Yeah, definitely. I would see it as a big opportunity for smaller communities that already have agriculture as a big part of their industry, which is, a lot of communities in Manitoba. So definitely, that chance to, take what they already have and make it something, bigger and better and draw those visitors to that region.
Have you been in conversation with, is there a Tourism Saskatchewan? Does that exist?
Yes, yeah. They're
amazing.
Absolutely,
what are you hearing from them?
Yeah, so we're partnered with them on this. We actually work jointly with them to submit this proposal into Destination Canada. And we've worked with them a bit already. They're very collaborative and we work well with them. So that is part of what is going to really make this work. And we have already connected with a few of the key communities along the corridor and some of the key associations that would be involved in this as well. And they're very much in support. And so the next step now is to kind of broaden that and reach out to more folks and see who else wants to be part of this initiative.
Well, Jackie, thank you so much for joining us this afternoon. I'm excited to see how this corridor plays out and what it looks like in the future.
Well, thank you very much for having me here today. Thank you.
Jackie Tenuta is Travel Manitoba's Vice President of Destination Management.
Hi, Hi, I'm Matea Roach, and I have a new show on CBC. It's called Bookends. Every week, authors from Canada and around the world will join me to discuss their latest books. We'll have best-selling authors and rising stars. Our conversations will be smart and surprising, because when the book ends, the conversation begins.
Bookends with Matea Roach premieres Sunday afternoon at 1:30 in Newfoundland, 3 Pacific, and on demand on CBC Listen or wherever you get your podcasts.
You're listening to Radio Noon on CBC Radio 1, 89.3 FM in Winnipeg, 97.9 FM in Brandon, and everywhere on the CBC Listen app. I'm Chloe Friesen, filling in for Janet Stewart. Thank you so much for joining us. Coming up on the show, we're going to head to Brandon shortly, where a new basketball court just opened up. Dauphin, pardon me. We're heading to Dauphin, where a new basketball court just opened up, and it was actually designed by the kids that will use it. That story is coming up. And as I mentioned earlier, today, October 1st, is National Seniors Day, and that is the topic of our call-in conversation. It's the day to celebrate the special senior in your life. Now, this could be a parent, a coworker, a neighbor, a friend. We want to hear from you. Call us at 204-780-0893 just after the 12:30 news, or you can text us already, 204-588-7355. Tell us about a senior that is making an impact, whether in your own life or in the community. A quick look at some local temperatures right now. Here in Winnipeg, it is currently 14 degrees, and we are looking at increasing cloudiness this afternoon. Wind southwest 30, gusting to 50, a high of 17. That's kind of consistent across the province. Brandon also looking at a high of 17, 18. Dauphin, a high of 17. Thompson and Steinbach, also a high of 17 with increasing cloudiness this afternoon. Now, while the Manitoba Summer Games are over, it's still left a legacy in Dauphin, a brand new basketball court designed by local kids. The Dauphin Project is a partnership between the nonprofit group Buckets and Borders, the Games, and the Rotary Club of Dauphin. The court's grand opening happened this Saturday right behind the high school. CBC's Chelsea Kemp was there, and she spoke with Justin Lee, CEO and co-founder of Buckets and Borders.
Buckets and Borders is a nonprofit organization that uses basketball as a means to improve communities and bring people together. And we do that predominantly through building and restoring outdoor basketball courts all across the country.
How many courts do you have in Manitoba right now?
In Manitoba, we have 4 courts between here and Winnipeg, but we've done about 20 courts across the country.
So this is the first Royal Manitoba court then?
Yes, it is the first Royal Manitoba court, yeah.
How did you end up getting connected with Dauphin?
We got connected through the 2024 Summer Games through Clayton Swanton, who's the chair of the Games Committee, and he reached out and everything kind of came together really quickly, and next thing you knew, we were working closely with the students to design the court.
Tell me about design of the court. How does that happen and how are kids involved?
With youth design projects, we always work directly with the youth on implementing their inspiration, their vision to the court. So we do that by just having drawing sessions where they can design their own courts and then writing down words, important things that mean things to them. And that's how they kind of landed on the court and art piece that we see today.
Why is it important they kind of just get to reflect their community on the court?
I think it's important for communities to be represented in artwork and in sport, and I think that's what we do with our courts, is working closely with communities to make sure that it is representative of the surrounding community, and that creates a lot of pride, and I think ultimately a more inclusive space.
How do you kind of launch it? Like, what's going on today?
Today is the grand opening celebration, so we always do free youth programming and then head into three-point competition games, usually free food and music. So it's really a day to celebrate the many subcultures of basketball, and we do that through just trying to bring people together through a fun 4 or 5 hour event.
And the kids get to go home with their own basketball, right?
Yes, the kids get their own basketball after the camp and a camp t-shirt as well.
What do you hope they do with that basketball?
Well, we hope they come back to this court for sure, and that they can just use basketball as a positive thing and a positive vehicle in their life to play the game, but ultimately, use it as a way to make more friends and take on a lot of life experiences through it.
to you makes basketball kind of like that special sport that brings kids together but keeps them active too?
Yeah, I think basketball is different than any other sport in the world in its inclusive nature, and I think that there's so much teamwork. It's close proximity. It is affordable and more accessible than other sports, which ultimately I think leads to more kids playing it. And it's also in Canada, the sport is growing from having more WNBA, NBA players being represented at the Olympics. So I think there's a lot of young kids looking up to the success that a lot of players across the country are having.
So the Buckets and Borders court that is designed was a design that was created by the students of our local high school and Whitmore Elementary School together, and they doodled on some paper some ideas that they had, sent it to the Buckets and Borders team. They came back to us with a couple ideas from those doodles, and what we ended up with was a fantastic mix of the cultures and the nature of our region. So we've got a Métis symbol in the 3-point lines, we've got the medicine wheel in the middle, and then we've got the colors for the Ukrainian heritage, the blue and the yellow, and then we've got nature, our tie-in with the sun and the waves, because Dauphin is just a beautiful spot in Manitoba. So we're so excited that we have been able to pull all that in.
What's been your favorite part of today?
You're just seeing the kids getting a basketball smile on their face, and just a beautiful sunny day. It's just perfect for this court.
That was Clayton Swanton, a dad in the community and self-proclaimed community champion and member of Rotary Club of Dauphin. Before him, we heard from Justin Lee, the CEO of Buckets and Borders. If you want to see that new court, if you're watching on our YouTube live stream, you would have seen just the beautiful, very colorful basketball court that is there now in Dauphin, or you can head to our website, cbc.ca/Manitoba, to see that court in action. It is now behind the high school in Dauphin.
I'm Rob Norman.
I'm Andrew Norton.
And on Personal Best, we help you tackle the stuff you'd be too embarrassed to ask an attractive, successful life coach about.
We have a slightly different approach to self-improvement.
Which is, we don't know what we're doing.
Definitely somebody following me.
She's holding a sword.
This is so nuts.
But in the end, it always works. Okay, it sometimes works.
You have no idea. This makes me...
Personal Best, Season 3. Available now wherever you get your podcasts.
21 minutes after 12 o'clock. You're listening to Radio Noon on CBC Radio 1. I'm Chloe Friesen, filling in for Janet Stewart. Now, coming up for our call-in conversation, today is National Seniors Day, and we want to hear about an incredible senior in your life. Or maybe you're that incredible senior yourself and you want to toot your own horn. Well, today is the day. You can call us after 12:30 at 204-780-0893, or text us. You can already start texting at 204-588-7355. We'll read your messages on the air, and we'll also be joined by the CEO of Can Age for a conversation around aging in Canada and how we can better support the seniors in our lives. That is coming up just after the 12:30 news. But first, country music superstar and A-list Hollywood actor Kris Kristofferson has died. He was 88 years old. Kristofferson wrote some of the most recognizable country songs of the last 50 years. Boots Graham is an Alberta-based country singer who counts Kris Kristofferson as one of his inspirations.
Kris Kristofferson, as far as cultural icons, might be the most interesting person who ever lived. Before he was even a songwriter, he was a helicopter pilot for the Army and served in Germany, and was supposed to go to Vietnam, but took a job as a professor instead. He was a Rhodes Scholar at Oxford, and this is all before he was a famous songwriter or movie star or any of that stuff. As, you know, kind of an intellectual and an outsider to country music, he brought a different voice. His influences would have been different than somebody like Willie Nelson or Waylon Jennings. You know, he was well-read, and he spoke from a poet's perspective, and not in a painterly way, just in a very blue-collar, approachable way. So there's some funny stories, like there's a legendary place called Sue Brewer's house, and that's where all the songwriters would hang out, Roger Miller and Webb Pierce, Willie Nelson, and he got a job sweeping the floors there just so he could hang around. My favorite story, and I think that it maybe was embellished by Johnny Cash a little bit, but the legend goes that Kris Kristofferson landed a helicopter on Johnny Cash's front lawn with the song Sunday Morning coming down in one hand and a beer in the other, and didn't even know the guy. I was just there to pitch the song. And of course, Johnny Cash recorded the song and had an incredible version. So the songs that I'm most drawn to are the ones that are just, it's thoughts that we've all had, but put to words in a way that, you know, most of us are not capable of putting them. Like heartache songs that exist in country music will always exist in country music, but a song like Help Me Make It Through the Night paints a picture. It puts you into the scene. There's songs like The Pilgrim, Chapter 33, which is just about being a songwriter and kind of the life that takes on. He had a wonderful perspective.
That's country singer Boots Graham. Chris Christopherson died on Saturday at the age of 88. Now, we can't hear that story about the helicopter on Johnny Cash's lawn without hearing this song that accompanies it. Here's a bit of music. This is Sunday Morning, Coming Down.
Well, I woke up Sunday morning with no way to hold my head. It didn't hurt. The beer I had for breakfast wasn't bad, so I had one more for dessert. Then I fumbled through my closet for my clothes and found my cleanest dirty shirt. And I shaved my face and combed my hair and stumbled down the stairs to meet the day. I'd smoked my brain the night before on cigarettes and songs that I'd been picking. But I lit my first and watched a small kid cussing at a can that he was kicking. Then I crossed the empty street and caught the Sunday smell of someone frying chicken. And it took me back to something that I'd lost somehow, somewhere along the way. On the Sunday morning sidewalks, wishing, Lord, that I was stoned. 'Cause there's something in a Sunday makes a body feel alone. And there's nothing short of dying half as lonesome as the sound on the sleeping city sidewalks. Sunday morning coming down. In the park I saw a daddy with a laughing little girl who he was swinging. And I stopped beside a Sunday school and listened to the song that they were singing. Then I headed back for home, and somewhere far away a lonely bell was ringing. And it echoed through the canyons like the disappearing dreams of yesterday. On the Sunday morning sidewalks, wishing, Lord, that I was stoned. 'Cause there's something in a Sunday makes a body feel alone. And there's nothing short of dying half as lonesome as the sound on the sleeping city sidewalks. Sunday morning coming down.
That's Chris Christopherson with Sunday Morning coming down. Christopherson died on Saturday at the age of 88. Thanks for tuning in to Radio Noon here on CBC Radio 1. I'm Chloe Friesen, filling in for Janet Stewart. Wendy Parker is our show director this afternoon. May McKillop is behind the controls. And thank you to Kevin Nipatebo, who is running our YouTube live stream. And hello to the folks watching on YouTube. Still lots to come on the show, including our call-in conversation. The topic today is National Seniors Day shout-outs. If there is a senior in your life that you want to celebrate, could be a parent, a coworker, a neighbor, a friend, we want to hear all about them on our show today. You can call us 204-780-0893 just after your 12:30 news, or text us at 204-588-7355. It's time now for your CBC local news.
This is CBC News. Good afternoon, I'm Rosanna Hempel. At 12:30, it's 14 in Winnipeg. Getting cloudier this afternoon, a high of 17. Israel's military says Iran has launched a missile attack. It says more than 100 missiles were fired into Israel. Sirens were sounding across the country, including Tel Aviv and Jerusalem. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu is asking residents to strictly obey instructions from the nation's civilian protection agency. For the past 2 weeks, Israel has targeted Hezbollah targets inside Lebanon, killing more than 1,000 people. The Iranian attack comes shortly after Israel stepped up cross-border raids into Lebanon, targeting Hezbollah infrastructure. The U.S. has vowed Iran would face serious consequences in the event of a ballistic missile attack. In this country, Defense Minister Bill Blair says Canada has a number of resources in the area to assist Israel if necessary.
We have about 200 people in the area right now, but we're increasing that number as may be required. We are also looking at air assets and potential use of helicopter assets. Those things are being determined now. It's part of the pre-planning that we've already invested in the area. We have facilities and plans set up in place in both Cyprus and in Turkey.
That was the defense minister in Ottawa. Here in Manitoba, the green and white Nigerian flag is flying at the Manitoba Legislative Building for the first time ever. Today is Nigerian Independence Day. Nigeria declared independence from colonial rule 64 years ago today. Vera Obehi Keyede is the president of the Nigerian Association of Manitoba. She's overwhelmed with pride to see the flag flying in this province.
Everywhere we go, we don't just stay there. We contribute. We make impacts. So saying that is reminding us as a people that we continue to make impacts and we will not relent in contributing our quarter to the province and to the city of Winnipeg.
Earlier this year, Health Minister Uzoma Asagwera, whose parents are Nigerian, introduced the bill to commemorate Nigerian Independence Day. Celebrations continue this weekend with an event at Alloway Hall at the Manitoba Museum. And last month was officially the hottest September on record in Winnipeg. Despite yesterday's cooler weather, the average temperature for the month was 17.8 degrees. That's 0.2 of a degree warmer than the previous record set in 2009. And that is the CBC News from Winnipeg. Your next local CBC News is at 1:30.
Thanks, Rosanna.
You're welcome.
It's Rosanna Hempel with your CBC local news. And Riley Lachuk, weather specialist, joins us now. And Riley, Rosanna was just talking about the warmest September on record?
Yeah, it was a very warm month.
Okay, it's interesting because I guess I very much live in the moment because I stepped outside today and I'm like, it's always been cold.
It was I don't mean to sound punny, but it was kind of like a free fall into fall.
It does feel
like that. Through the day yesterday, right? Like
exactly.
We started the day yesterday,
okay,
6 o'clock in the morning, 23 degrees. By 6 p.m. we were at 12. So we went through a literal free fall.
Fall fell.
We fell into fall.
I love it.
Much more seasonal weather as we get through the rest of this week, Chloe. We'll step back and talk about that record for a second. So yeah, we're talking about the mean temperature, which is the average of all of the daily high temperatures plus the average of all the daily low temperatures. Combine that, average it out. We get to that one number of the average temperature being 17.8 degrees through the month of September. 17.6 being that record from 2009. The hottest day, if you want some trivia for the afternoon, September 9th at 31.3 in Winnipeg.
We reached 31 in September.
Yes, we did. We actually had 2 days above 30 and 1 day close to the end of the month, we were at 29.9.
Wow.
I'm rounding that one up to 30. So 3 30-degree days through the month of September.
Well, you know what? I'm all right with the falling.
Yeah. Much more seasonal. Here's your temperatures right now. 14 in Winnipeg, 12 in Portage, Brandon, Melita, Morden, Steinbach, also all at 14 degrees. The Pause at 9 right now, 6 in Thompson, 5 in Churchill. So much more October-like weather as we start a new month here. That is all because of that area of low pressure, that very strong area of low pressure that moved through the province yesterday. Still spinning off the coast of Hudson Bay, bringing some very gusty winds to the Churchill region, a few scattered showers. Even, dare I say, early in the morning, a few isolated flurries possible through parts of the far north, the Hudson Bay coast to Dooley Lake. It was to be expected, along with those very strong winds we saw yesterday. A cold front that swept through along with that area of low pressure really brought things down very quickly throughout the day yesterday to somewhat of a reality check throughout the day yesterday. As we get through the rest of the afternoon, expect a few scattered showers through northern Manitoba. A general mix of sun and cloud here in the south, but still a few breezy conditions out there through the afternoon hours. I think a slight chance of maybe a scattered shower through the overnight hours early morning into Wednesday, so don't be surprised if you end up in one of those 5-minute showers early in the morning. Very isolated. I don't mean to say that tomorrow morning's washout, but certainly just be prepared for an isolated shower through the morning tomorrow. Into the afternoon, mainly sunny skies once again. Basically, we're looking at a mix of sun and clouds through the rest of the work week, and temperatures very close to seasonal. Winds gusting up to 70 or stronger along the Hudson Bay coast today, more like 20 gusting 40 for the rest of us through the province. The winds do stay gusty through the evening, dying off a bit overnight tonight, and then we're back into windy conditions, particularly in the far north through the day on Wednesday, looking at winds gusting up to 60 or 70 through Lynn Lake to Dooley Lake into the Churchill region, 20 gusting 40 for much of the rest of the province as we head through the day on Wednesday. Your forecast for today, we're looking at 16 in Winnipeg, a mix of sun and clouds for the most part across southern Manitoba. More cloud than sun in some cases, but a general, what I'm calling a sun-cloud mix. So you'll see some sunny breaks. You'll see some cloud cover through the day. 18 in Brandon, Thompson, 8 degrees with a few scattered showers today. 15 for Wednesday, 13 for Thursday. Friday, I will make a note that we do have a risk of frost getting down to 0 early Friday morning in Winnipeg, up to 14 through the afternoon, and then 17s and 18s again.
It's good to know. I was wondering when I should pull up my carrots.
Yeah, it's that time of year.
All right.
We really, really turn the page quickly.
Thank you, Riley.
You're welcome.
That's CBC weather specialist Riley Lachuk. You're listening to Radio Noon on CBC Radio 1, and it is that time for our call-in conversation. Now, today is October 1st, and while it's the start of a new month, it's also National Seniors Day in Canada. It's a day to pay tribute to the seniors who have helped shape our country, our province, and communities, and who enrich our lives each and every day. So, for today's call-in conversation, we want you to shout out the seniors in your life. Tell us about their impact, big or small. You can call us. The lines are open at 204-780-0893. That's 204-780-0893. Or you can send us a text and we will read it on your behalf. 204-588-7355. 204-588-7355. Now, according to Stats Canada, the population that's aged 85 and older is one of the fastest growing age groups in the country. And currently, 2.3% of the population is aged 85 and older. And here for a conversation on National Seniors Day is Laura Tamblin-Watts. She's the president and CEO of CanAge, a national seniors advocacy organization. She is our guest today. Good afternoon, Laura.
Good afternoon. Great to be here.
So let's get you to kick off our call-in conversation today. Is there a senior in your life that you would like to celebrate today?
It won't surprise you to say that I'm calling out my parents who are 87 this year. And I'm not sure that they have realized this because my dad was saying he was helping a little old lady down the street who was, 10 years younger than him. And that just speaks to how we think about age differently these days.
I love it. I am going to shout out my neighbor back home in my hometown of Morden. Her name is Helen. And Helen is 97, I believe, living on her own and just always bringing over a delicious pie. We talk about our gardening. She's just absolutely lovely and brightens my day every time I get to interact with her. So Helen is my shout out today. Now, Laura, I've always wondered, what is the official age range for senior? When can folks start calling themselves seniors?
I think it just sort of depends what you're trying to achieve.
Okay.
I turned 53 this year, and sometimes I get special discounts for being over the age of 50, and then I kind of lean into it in that regard. Usually, we think about 65 as a demarcator because that's often an age where you get to do things like, for instance, you might be able to draw down on some public pensions or, if you have them, private pensions. But we kind of think about being an older adult depending on your circumstance. Certainly somebody who's 65 has very little in common with somebody who's 95. So we're talking about, a 30-year, sometimes a 40-year range. I usually say, let's talk about this in smaller slices to really get a sense of who we're talking about.
I'm curious about your work with CanAge. This is something you talk about often. It's probably feels like National Seniors Day every day. For the folks at CanAge. What's your favorite part about your work? Why are you so passionate about it, about Canada's senior population?
It's constantly evolving, and it's always interesting, whether you're talking about issues of discrimination like ageism one time, or the next time you're talking about financial issues. You have to constantly learn. For instance, did you know that we actually measure seniors' poverty wrong? The market basket measure, which I had to learn about a couple of years ago, measures what we count. And usually we count for household needs based on a young family with children. So we don't count the right things. And that's one of the reasons why we have the wrong amounts of money for things like CPP and OAS and GS, because we don't ever count the right stuff. All the way to sort of the international stuff that we're doing, fighting for the rights of older persons, trying to get a UN convention on the rights of disabilities. But mostly it's because it's all of us, right? My husband always says, you got to do this stuff now because, you got to fix it by the time we need it. And that is, I think, the story for everyone. We really can make Canada the best place to age, but we better start soon.
We'll all hopefully become seniors one day. And we actually got a text with a senior shout out here. The person says, I'd like to make 2 shout outs. My parents, Dalmar and Jean of Melita. Thank you for that text. Shout out to Dalmer and Jean of Melita. Lovely to hear from you. And if you want to call us and share a story about the senior in your life who has really made a difference or you just think needs to be celebrated, you can call us at 204-780-0893, or you can also text us 204-588-7355. Shout out a senior in your life who deserves to be celebrated today. It could be family members, a neighbor, a coworker, or a friend. Now, Laura, you spoke about how your job is different every day, and you mentioned there's different issues that you get to explore and talk about. And we had you on, I believe, in March to talk about the stigma around aging. Yes. Back in March, we were discussing the topic in relation to the U.S. election when Joe Biden was still in the running and had the potential of becoming the oldest president of the United States. What persisting ideas or beliefs are still out there when it comes to aging?
Well, we don't really think anything good about it. I remember we did a bit of a publicity stunt, if you will, to raise awareness on aging some years back. We offered a cream that would make you look older on the streets of Toronto and see what people's reactions were. They were horrified. And we just thought that was interesting because everything is always about how you can be or act or somehow embody younger things, but because it doesn't make any sense to do it. We know that as you are older, generally you can be more happy, unless you're in very ill health or very lonely. That's a kind of a separate conversation. We know that your relationships are generally richer. You know more things, so that's good. We often conflate age with illness or age with dementia or age with frailty, and that's not what it is. Those are different things. But having said that, ageism is the most prevalent form of discrimination, both in the world and frankly in Canada. 63% of Canadian seniors say they've been actively discriminated against.
And we'll go back to some of those issues you mentioned there, but we do want to take some time for a shout out, a senior shout out. We've got Daphne on line 1. Hi, Daphne. Who would you like to shout out today?
Well, I'd like to shout out my neighbors. Their names are John and Uta Hasniak. I hope I said that right. And they both arrived in Canada, if I remember the stories correctly, sometime in the 60s or the 70s. And now this woman donates so many things to secondhand stores in this city. Every time we go for a walk, and like she's 85, this woman gets around. She walks, she acts like she's 30 years old. We pick up cans for recycling, for donation. Like, I mean, she's just amazing. And so is her husband. He's a few years older than her. They still do all kinds of things. I don't know. I just don't know what to say. But, oh, my God, all I can say is I hope I'm like them when I'm her age. And I know she's done tons of stuff for people in the community, and so is he. And they're just wonderful people.
Oh, I love that, Daphne. Thank you so much for sharing.
Okay, thanks.
Now, Laura, when you hear Daphne, the line that stood out to me was, I hope I'm like them when I'm their age. How important are those relationships across generations to just kind of dispel some of those stigmas and maybe the ageism that we hear about?
It's critically important that we have generations befriending other generations. We know that. And if you want to protect your social well-being, you should think about having friends in at least 3 generations. There's science for you. 3 generations will help to protect your well-being. And it helps when you're younger to have people who are older. There's certainly more life experience than you, better stories. They'll tell you how to do the things that you need to know how to do. And, and sometimes we think, well, Google can tell us all that. No, it's not. It's actually about the richness of the human experience. And younger people enrich the life of older people as well. And so that intersectional piece, that intergenerational piece, we know makes younger people happier and older people happier. The most lonely people in Canada are ages 15 to 24 and over the age of 70. And you put them together, magic happens.
How can we do that? How can we get those generations together more often?
Whether it's having community centers that are also senior centers, whether it's putting preschools in places where older people go, whether it's having intergenerational programming. Have you ever tried to take your kids to something like a swimming lesson, right? It's down by almost 1 year if you have a 5-year-old and a 6-year-old. We segment in these teeny different sections by age. How about we do it by ability, right? Whether you're learning to swim or you're a good swimmer, that's going to have more intergenerational places. One of the things we all know about is the housing crisis. And yet we haven't fully embraced things like home share programs where older people who have rooms in their home can offer housing at a much lower rate to younger people in exchange for a little bit of help around the house, raking the leaves, walking the dog, that kind of thing. Helps everybody. So we have good programs. We just really got to use them and lean into them.
Now, speaking of generations, a lot of folks think of seniors and they think of grandparents. How important would you say are grandparents to grandkids and connecting those generations? And some grandparents are guardians to kids as well. How important is that relationship?
Well, there's actual science to show that both grandchildren and grandparents have significantly better cognition. So older people delay cognitive decline. Younger people learn faster. They have better grip strength. You wouldn't think that, but both of them have better grip strength. If you have grandparents and grandchildren, yes, the grip strength is actually better. They're also more stable. So older people and younger people, think about teaching a toddler to walk or a preschooler, but also an older person. They are more stable and both of them are less likely to fall. They have also more protection for their well-being in terms of mental health in their later years. So it is actually critically important. Now, it doesn't necessarily have to be a biological grandparent. Let's not get stuck on that. It's that idea of having someone to reach out to, whether it's a friend, a godparent, a neighbor that plays that important role. It's not the blood or adopted tie. It's that role that they play.
And if you want to talk about someone who is in that grandparent role in your life and you want to just give them a shout out and share what sort of impact they've made on either your life or perhaps your kids' lives, you can call us at 204-780-0893. That's 204-780-0893. Or you can send us a text message at 204-588-7355, 204-588-7355. Now, Laura, I'm curious about the work that CanAge does with different cultures. Different cultures have different views on elders and aging. What have you learned about some of the traditions around aging in your work?
It's interesting because it would be so lovely to say, oh, this culture's got it right, or this culture respects its elders. And to some effect, I think every culture has something to contribute to that conversation. But there's no place that elder abuse and neglect doesn't happen. Sometimes it's layered with the inability to talk about it because we don't want to be disrespectful. One of the things that's really important also to remember is there's different expectations about who will live in the family house. And as we have Canadians of many different cultures and faiths coming together, sometimes we have to figure it out a little bit. What if you've got somebody, for instance, maybe you're in a South Asian culture or an Asian culture, and the expectation is that mom or dad will come and live with you, and your spouse and your kids are thinking, what are you talking about right now? So sometimes we have to unpack a little bit about those social expectations. But functionally, what we need to do is make sure that people stay connected, whether they live in your house or not, and that cultural traditions and norms get passed down. We know that that really enriches younger people and older people. Things like cooking traditional foods together or sharing faith experiences, those are really important.
We got a text for our senior shout out today on Radio Noon. Tasha would like to send praise to her great-grandmother, Marilyn Ross. She was born in 1933, says Tasha, and still is a force and example of grace as a great-great-grandmother to Tasha's children. And she attended her first concert in 2022, Chris Stapleton, and hung around to see him again in 2024. Tasha says it was a great bonding moment that she'll cherish forever. Tasha, I love that story so much, and a shared love of music. That is wonderful. If you want to give a senior shout out or just share a story about an important senior in your life, you can call us at 204-780-0893. Or like Tasha did, you can send us a text at 204-588-7355. Laura, I think about those shared activities and the experience that must have been to go to two Chris Stapleton concerts with your great-great-grandmother or someone who is a great-great-grandmother. Do you hear stories like that in your work?
We do. And what's really great is to see when it comes from both sides. So maybe your grandfather, or for that matter, great-grandfather, is really into curling. Taking somebody younger or a friend or a neighbor to that activity really helps to pass that fun along and lets you do something together that's active. Going even to the movies, something like that is a really fun and active way of engaging. Some people don't feel like they know what to do, what to talk to about older people. And if that's the case, there's that whole axiom. You don't always have to do everything face to face. Sometimes you can do things shoulder to shoulder. Gardening, great example, right? You can both do things together. If you're a younger person, maybe your knees are a little bit better than mine are or my mother's are. Maybe you get down on the ground and do some of that lifting, and you can learn a little bit about how they do the gardening or whatever it is, woodworking, any of these types of skills and crafts that get passed down wonderfully to do together.
My grandma Friesen, she just passed this last Easter, but our shared activity was crochet. She had crocheted for many, many years, and then I picked it up, and it was just this wonderful bonding experience where we were very different in age, but we felt like equals, sharing our projects and our tips and our yarn color choices. So that is something that I hold very dearly to me. We have Kareen on the line, and Kareen has a senior shout out to share. Good afternoon, Kareen.
Hi there. I'm just so glad you're doing this because I think that the seniors in our community, they really contribute so much to our society. And so I'm really glad you're doing this. And my shout out is for Yvonne Boyce-Claire. So she lives in Transcona, and she has been an active force in our parish community, our church community, as well as in the Transcona Seniors Council. And she gives so much of herself in volunteerism. And I would just say to anybody to look for opportunities to volunteer with seniors together in your community. It's just been a blessing, and she inspires lots of people, and she keeps people in line because she has a background of serving in the military. And so, yeah, shout out to Yvonne Boyce-Claire.
Corinne, thank you so much for sharing that with us today. Laura, something that stands out to me about what Corinne had to say was it's the leadership value that the senior she was shouting out brings. I feel like there's stigmas around seniors in positions of leadership. What does that look like in your work?
It's kind of a plus and a minus depending on how we're thinking about it. What I would say is that, just picking up on the point about volunteering, about 72% of all Canadian seniors volunteer.
Wow.
And that's not even just including volunteering to take care of grandchildren, which many of us have been grateful for over the years. 72% of Canadian seniors actively volunteer. One of the big concerns is, as the different generations of seniors kind of pull through, that's not being picked up by other people. So I just love that shout out to the woman who's doing such great leadership and volunteering, because we do need more of that. And maybe find out where a person you're admiring is volunteering and see if you can't help to backfill some of that at some point. That may transition. The other point, of course, is that there's this stigma at work, right? There's that, why don't they retire so that I can take that role? Or why don't they sell the house? Or why don't they stop talking about things in their generation? And I think what's really important to understand about that is it's really not about generations. It's about often concern about financial well-being or concern about things like increased diversity. And really, when we think about that, we have to kind of challenge ourselves. What is it that's being frustrating? And I think a lot of the times you'll see that actually many people have much more in common than they do have in difference.
I want to read a text that we received here from Michelle. Michelle says that her parents are up there, 88 and 87. They adopted me back in the 60s and have loved me unconditionally. Michelle says that she's meeting a couple of her biological siblings at the end of October, and they're getting together with her adoptive family. Love my mom and dad, Clay and Doreen, and that's from Michelle. Thank you for that, Michelle. Also, let's add Candace. Candace wants to shout out her grandparents, Corny and Ruth. They have always been a huge support in her life. They're the definition of aging gracefully. I hope to one day be half the woman my grandma is. Oh, Candace, thank you so much for that shout out. And Laura, we just have a couple minutes left here, but as we end the show here, what do you want people to remember or think about on National Seniors Day?
There's a lot that we can do better that's not that hard, right? There's a lot of things that are very complicated and very difficult, but there are a lot of things that are not that hard. In my book, Let's Talk About Aging Parents, we are giving some strategies associated with how to connect with older people, how to make sure that when you're helping and support them with onboarding with technology, that you're doing so in an age-inclusive way. And believe me, they will be off on Facebook and FaceTiming the kids and all of that stuff. But sometimes you need to share that information a little bit differently. We also really need to start talking about things like seniors' poverty in a serious way and ageism in a serious way. Right now, 17% of Canadian seniors live below the median line, making older people living on fixed incomes one of the poorest in Canada. That's especially true for older women. Ageism and loneliness are things that we can also overcome. Check how you're feeling. When you look at those birthday cards, have a look at them and say, is that really the message that I want to give? Or do I really think that that's the right thing to say about an older person? And don't forget, the easiest thing you can do is make a connection. Stop and say hi, because many older people during the pandemic didn't feel that much of a difference because they were always alone. So just even that hello, that makes all the difference in the world.
Excellent reminders. Thank you so much, Laura.
Thank you.
And a happy National Seniors Day.
Happy National Seniors Day right back at you.
Laura Tamplin-Watts is the president and CEO of CanAge, a national seniors advocacy organization. And as I mentioned, today is National Seniors Day. Coming to the end of Radio Noon here. But first, Faith Fundal, host of Up to Speed, has joined me in studio for a look ahead to this afternoon's show.
Hello, Chloe, from celebrating seniors to celebrating a different thing. We're going to hear from Chantal Kreviazek because it is the 25th anniversary of her first album coming up.
Wow.
She's going to come on the show to talk about what the past 25 years has been like for her and what the future holds. So stay tuned for that conversation.
Looking forward to it. Thank you, Faith.
It's going to be fun. Thanks.
That's Faith Boondahl, host of Up to Speed. I'm Chloe Friesen, filling in for Janet Stewart. Our tech today was May McKillop. Wendy Parker was our director, and Kevin Nipatebo in charge of our YouTube live stream. Thank you so much for listening. I will be back with you folks tomorrow on Radio Noon. Coming up on CBC Radio 1 is Unreserved.